Okay, guys, I'm back in my dedicated room garage apartment system and going to play that Rutter Requiem track that we heard on the Avalons as well as the MBL Extremes and let you listen back here based on my system, the REL 25. This is a track that is most used for subwoofer, pipe organ, low bass, but there's a lot of other things you can test with this track that gets overlooked. So I'll stop at various points to kind of point those out. And also the different presentations, commentary that you're not going to pick up so much with the cell phone mic. But let's just get started. Well, just before we even get into the meat of the song, just those single instruments are very easy to test and benchmark against other systems. Is the sound realistic? Is it delicate? Is it maybe a little too phasey sounding or bright? Those are some things that I notice between different systems when I've heard this track, because this is one you will encounter probably fairly often. Not to the level of maybe some of the Keith Don't Goes and those kind of things, but a lot of people that want to show off their bass performance, they will use this track. But I will show as we go along, they're using it to their detriment, because very rarely do I hear it sound good at the shows. But anyway, that first part can test acoustic instruments, so don't overlook that part of it. Okay, before we get into the bass part of this and the pipe organ, let's talk about her voice and the presentation. With this near field listening, like we saw in the other videos, or at least heard in the other videos and I commented on, with this system, I'm much more near field. So her voice is much more almost like you're the microphone and you're front row listening to her. You can almost reach out and grab her, which has some attractive details to it and aspects. But like I said, with the Avalon room, that was so attractive to me. And I guess it's all a case of whatever you're used to. Sometimes you can appreciate the opposite. So if I was always used to the Avalon presentation, which is more set back, and I was like maybe 20 rows back, and I could almost picture the silhouette of her body, which I'd really never heard before with that song. And the way it was able to be captured, the whole ambience of that room was great for that presentation. But I do appreciate when I get near field like this, hearing her voice and the delicacy up close. You do pick up a little more details. Almost you hear her mouth parting and a little saliva. That aspect of, when you're close up to somebody, you appreciate some other and hear some things that you don't hear from a distance. So again, it's part of the presentation difference, but generally you want that voice to not be grating on you or bright. And if you can play opera good on your system, that's a good test, and that is kind of an operatic type voice in part of the song. But let's get to the bass now. Okay, so that part where the pipe organ kicks in is where most systems fail. Either you don't get that low register information, or you get it and it's one note, or a third problem, which is kind of the most problematic one I've seen. Here's the deal. Most people play this in their rooms when they know that they can produce the low notes because they want to show it off. But guess what happens when they play that part of the song? Yeah, you hear it, but it actually excites a room boom, and you're hearing mostly a room boom when the note either crosses over one of those thresholds that excites a room mode or something, and that's not natural bass. Now, yeah, it sounds louder because you've got this room boom accentuating the bass note, but you want to get your sub tuned and your room tuned such that when it's playing those notes, yeah, it pressurizes the room fully with the note, but it sounds like a real pipe organ as if you were in the actual venue versus an exaggerated caricature of a pipe organ where you're playing pipe organ notes, and then on top of that you've got your room booming and providing that extra pressurization and sound and reverberation and decay and stuff that's not natural. Now, if you like it, in fact, with rap music, some of that's cool and fun to actually have room boom. So, I'm not saying whatever your preference is, go for it. But in terms of being totally accurate, I find it much more enjoyable, this song, when it's not exciting those room modes, when it hits the low bass and you've got a good bass response and bass traps to eliminate those modes, at least at your listening position. It's much more enjoyable of a track because then you kind of feel like you're actually hearing a pipe organ and not a caricature of it. Let's go ahead and keep going. Okay, so you don't really have to be into choral music and this type to really appreciate this song for, it should be one that if you really enjoy it, probably it raises goosebumps on your arm if you're playing it in a great system. It will really be when the strings come in with the low bass from the pipe organ and then the male chorus combined with the female vocals. It's just a very beautiful piece of music that on lesser systems, though, are inappropriate rooms or whatnot, problematic things can cause this not to sound that great. The voice may be shrill, the bass is boomy, exciting room modes, and the male vocals and the strings kind of just wash into each other. So that's what you kind of want to look out for and go for my foolproof simple test of does it give you goosebumps or not. And yeah, that's what I feel now when I get this song just right. And definitely the REL 25 enhanced the performance in my room of this song for sure. I'll keep playing a little more. Okay, guys, obviously that's a great track for testing lots of things, but I wanted to focus real quick on what I was doing before I had the ability to, address room issues with bass traps and whatnot. If I had a room mode or something like that, I would come in here and I just created this new parametric EQ to show you. If you have a peak somewhere, you can offset it in your parametric EQ. This is most applicable when you have peaks that you want to offset. I would never use it for the opposite, to offset a dip. The parametric EQ is not going to really help that cancellation, but it can help somewhat with peaks, at least at your listening position. Maybe not the entire room, but at your listening position. So if you just want to get rid of that room boom that may occur at certain frequencies, and for each room it's different. But one thing I have noticed measuring tons of different rooms over the years, including my own, and having two systems of my own, is usually in the bass area, you'll have peaks and dips of your response that are pretty narrow. So you won't often have to do a correction that's really wide like this in your bass response. Usually there's like a dip and then a peak really close together somewhere, and that's usually because of your room cancellations and modes hitting the same, near the same area. And so you might have to do a very narrow swath here of a correction to kind of bring down a peak in your room that's causing that room boom. And oftentimes that boom will be in this under 100 area. So I was just trying to show you how you can use Roon and EQ to hopefully address that somewhat. Obviously bass traps would be better overall, because it could also help you with the dips. Because again, like I said, don't add with this EQ. It's not a good idea. It really won't work. I've tried it. So anyway, thought I'd throw in that little tip real quick. Hopefully you enjoyed that aspect in the system back here. The near field performance, a lot different than the Avalon. I still think I like the Avalon, and I'll switch this ironically to a more back perspective, because that's what I found great about the Avalon, is that I pictured the whole ensemble. I felt more immersive in the performance back here because I almost feel front row and I can almost touch the people singing. But it is nice to have that perspective of being 10, 20 rows back and enjoying the whole performance from afar. And I think that Avalon Isis room that I heard it in was the best I've heard of that presentation, and something I'd like to get with my other room, my wisdom room, because in that room I am sitting further back, and that room is more conducive to me trying to get that far field presentation. But let me go in that room and record some samples there, see how close I can get it.